This is Special Prosecutor Larry Clayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth, for competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty, for the Republic.
I'm the guy who, at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Clayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Clayman. I see my very good friend, Judah Friedman, laughing at the introduction. I guess it was the meatpacker line that was best. That I know how to slice and dice. Yeah, working in a meatpacking plant for my parents, and you can read about it in my book, Whores. It takes Why I Fight the Establishment. You can see exactly what's going on. In any event, lots of news this week. You can see what's going on this week. It's tragic. We're, in my view, on the throes of a potential World War III. We have a brain-dead president, one who's a criminal, one who's taken bribes from communist China, Ukraine, Russia, and now we find out Romania as well. God knows where it ends. And he's in charge. Is that a comforting thought? As I said in the podcast yesterday, this guy is in charge as the world is basically exploding. You not only have Ukraine, you now have Hamas, Israel, obviously Hezbollah likely to come into the fight. Iran's backing it all up. You've got China, which is waiting to pounce on Taiwan. You've got North Korea with more missiles and such. This is the state of affairs in this country today. And we've got this brain-dead fool, criminal, as president, who basically, when this war began with Hamas and they attacked Israel with this surprise attack, it took the White House staff 5 hours to get him out of bed. This is what we're dealing with. Frankly, it's a miracle it only took 5 hours, given what we've seen about him. And of course, now Israel is poised to do a land invasion, and this could spark, much more violence, obviously, in terms of having Iran come into the battle and Hezbollah. Anyway, I want to get the thoughts of Judah on this because he really is an excellent political prognosticator. He's lived in Israel. Judah, I think you also are an Israeli citizen, a dual citizen, are you not?
No, I'm not.
All right, but he lived in Israel, his family in Israel. Anyway, give us your thoughts on what's going on.
Well, I mean, I've obviously, yes, I have family in Israel, and I'll just tell you something. I have 6 cousins in the reserves, and one of them sent me a picture a week and a half ago, maybe, of it got passed around the family, of him sitting on a tank, and this Orthodox guy praying on the tank, this religious rabbi, and I was thinking to myself, it took so much for Israel to get united, and which Israel is extremely united right now. And secondly, then I posted the picture, and my father said, I don't know by law if you're actually allowed to post that picture. And I immediately withdrew that picture, as opposed to this administration, who doxed our essentially our SEAL Team 6. And I mean, nobody even brings this up, Larry. I mean, can you imagine if Donald Trump doxed these our SEAL team? I mean, you're talking about ineptitude on scales and levels we've never witnessed. And I'm not sure that actually answered the question you asked, Larry, but that was just a total side note that people seem to be glossing over.
Well, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of aspects to this struggle with Hamas, and let's back up a little bit here. Israel.
I'm sorry about that.
Israel was caught flat-footed.
Yeah.
Netanyahu, he's part of this unity government now, but he's toast. He'll be gone shortly. We've got several days, if not over a week, where Hamas has had the opportunity to prepare for a land invasion. God knows what else they've done with Iran. Landmines, you can name it. It's going to be a very costly land invasion. You got Hezbollah in the north over the Golan Heights, poised to attack Israel. They've got over 100,000 rockets. And there's the involvement of Russia, China, you name it. So where do you think this thing's going? Just as a
I think
general.
it's going to hell. I think it's what you brought up. I don't think we listen. I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone before, a mutual acquaintance who we can't mention his name, and I was saying to him, there is no good outcome here. And the problem is, you and I and a bunch of people in the conservative or whatever you want to call it movement openly admit, for people that don't know, Larry's a hero. Okay. Larry fought the Supreme Court after 9/11, after the wiretapping, and actually won. Okay. That is something to be heroic and extremely proud of. Now, with that being said, we made a lot of mistakes. Now, because we made a lot of mistakes, Larry, we have people that have reverted the other way, right? Where we don't go in, where we don't help. And you being a fan, having been a fan of, not a fan of Ukraine necessarily, but realizing what Putin all-out control will do for the world. Now, I agree with you. Just because we made mistakes, it doesn't mean we don't intervene and don't help, because we are facing right now 6 or 7 existential threats to our, not counting climate change, Larry. I have never witnessed such a geopolitical nightmare storm as we have right now, and Biden's going on vacation for 3 days.
Oh, he is. I didn't even know that. Where's he going?
He's going to Delaware. Where's Ben Stein says they have the best fried chicken. So that's where he's off to, Larry. And it's frightening. And I'm not saying this to people, Larry. There's a difference between being an isolationist that's weak and an isolationist with a weapon. And sadly, a lot of us on our side have cowered and have made we went the other way, to the Tucker Carlson side, which is an extremely dark, cynical view of the world that I choose not to partake in.
Well, the difference between you and Tucker Carlson is you actually believe what you're saying. Tucker tailors it for who he's working for at the time or what his audience is.
Yes.
But in terms of the risk here, the risk to the United States, what do you think that risk is? Where do you think it's going to end?
I think it has with us being forced to go into Iran, with us being forced to intervene in certain areas of the world that we never wanted to have to intervene in. We were on path, we were on course to have none of this. And in two and a half years, Larry, we're on the cusp of having to go and send our soldiers into places we don't want to. We're going to be forced to do it. There's not going to be a question about it. Iran will have a nuclear weapon.
I think they already have a nuclear weapon.
You're probably right. And
I said to you earlier in the week, it reminds me of the movie Dr. Strangelove. You remember that movie? Where Peter Sellers played Henry Kissinger in effect, and every time he confronted the president, he would do a Sig Heil and had to pull his hand down. But the thing I remember the most about that movie, and Peter Sellers was a brilliant comedian.
The best.
Was the end, he was the best. At the end of the movie, Slim Pickens rides the bomb down because they can't recall it. It's the Doomsday machine. And with his cowboy hat, and he's screaming, "We got to take the Ruskies on sometime. We might as well do it now." And that's my view at this point, is that I'm almost hoping that the United States is provoked, and Israel, and Saudi Arabia for that matter, which is a natural ally, even if they pretend they're, for Hamas right now, but they're not really, they could care less. I would hope that they provoke it to the point that we take the leadership in Iran down right now. Because if you let this go further, it's going to be much worse. And that, to me, is what the issue I have with Netanyahu. I've said this for a long time. The guy has a big mouth. He shoots it off. He speaks, American English. He grew up where I grew up in Philadelphia. He was in Cheltenham. I was a few miles away. My cousins were there. And he's very convincing. But he's been in power most of this time when Hamas is built up and Hezbollah is built up. And now, Israel faces more than an existential threat. This is the opportunity. If these hostile states that surround it want to do away with Israel, this is the opportunity, the last opportunity to do it. And I don't think that Biden, with his aircraft carriers and everything else out there, has the guts to do anything. I think in the end, he sits back and watches.
I think you're 100% correct. Listen, a broken clock is right twice sometimes, right? So Lindsey Graham, this is where I agree with him. Listen, I understand we got 2 hostages out today, and Hamas is playing the international media game, which everybody seems to be Hamas lovers these days. But the second this happened, we should have shot down one of their refineries and said you have 72 hours to release their hostages, or 48 hours, Larry. And if we don't have them within 48 hours, there goes another refinery. And it should have been that simple. Strength with these people. They don't understand anything else.
Well, we know what happened, when Reagan bombed the palace in Tripoli with Gaddafi.
Yeah.
I mean, it cowed Gaddafi for the rest of his life. And Trump, also sending cruise missiles in at the appropriate moment in Syria and elsewhere. This guy hadn't done anything. And then he says, his warning is, don't do it. I mean, what the hell does that mean?
4 times. 4 times.
Don't have heavy sex, with your girlfriend. I don't know what that means. So I'm being facetious, but that's how stupid that is. And then you've got a Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, who is a leftist Jew who looks like he's afraid of his shadow. I mean, it looks like he's about ready to collapse at any moment. And I mean, it's not funny, but it's tragic. We have about a minute left. We're going to come back. In the meantime, go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause with tax-deductible contributions. I have brought cases against Iran. We obviously have done what we can do as a public interest group, but now it's time for the American people to rise up and to form a new government, not a new nation. See what we're doing with our Third Continental Congress, because we can't have these clowns. And we'll talk about this when we come back, both Biden and the Republicans in charge during these perilous times. We'll be right back. But in the meantime, go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause. We need the resources with tax-deductible contributions. Stay tuned. We're back with Judah Friedman, the host of The World According to Ben Stein, the producer. A great show, 2 great talents there. Sometimes I'm on the show myself. I'm the lesser of the guests at that point. But the point I'm making here is that we've got Biden on one side, and then we've got the Republicans, the Keystone Cops, who can't even come up with a speaker. So what do? They spend the whole week on Jim Jordan, who, my view, is a clown. I mean, all he does is, with his rolled up sleeves, Ohio State wrestling coach, accused of overlooking sexual abuse at Ohio State for years. And that's the lesser of his problems. We don't know if that's true or not. But the guy hasn't done anything. He wants to be Speaker of the House. Is he abandoning the investigation of Joe Biden to do that? But in any event, that investigation is going nowhere anyway. But the Republicans don't have any leadership in the House of Representatives. And they're not even a foil to what's going on with Joe Biden. I mean, they're a joke. So, Judah, give me your thoughts on this. But what can we do as American citizens to rid our country of these clowns legally and peacefully? I mean, we're doing it at Freedom Watch by indicting them, trying them, and convicting them, and hopefully having law enforcement throw them in the slammer. But who is there?
I think you're raising the question that everybody's looking at now. And I said to people that week, when people were calling me, asking me my opinion, I thought it was a terrible decision. I thought it was a terrible decision, whatever your opinions of McCarthy are. And mine are not that high, obviously. I didn't think he was doing the worst job in the world, nor did I think he was doing the best job in the world. But Matt Gaetz was obviously doing it, acting like a petulant child. He got 4 people, including one of them being Nancy Mace, who people are not familiar with, is not a heavy Trump supporter. So this is, have you ever seen Planes and Trains and Automobiles, Larry?
Yeah, I did.
You remember there was that scene where Steve Martin says, if you're going to tell a story, have a point, or, have it go somewhere. And they had no plan. They had no point. And if you're going to get rid of somebody, have a plan, because this is where we are now. I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but President Trump's former doctor and Obama's Ronnie Jackson is calling for Rashida Tlaib to not be allowed to be in classified situations with it regarding Israel. She cannot be trusted. Neither could half of these people. And we don't have a Congress to approve something like that. So where are we better off? Are we better off than we were 2 weeks ago? No, we're not.
No, we're not. I mean, I wanted McCarthy to go, but I wanted there to be somebody behind him. There was no one. And, that's the problem. And that's why I want people to joined Freedom Watch because we are trying to do something. We do believe that we can form a new government, a shadow government. We can find people out there who have guts, people perhaps like Elon Musk and others who are not part of this establishment, this political establishment, that will actually do things on behalf of the American people. You know, I'm willing to step up to the plate. People like you are willing to step up to the plate, Judah. We, the American people, need to, because we're at the risk, frankly, of a nuclear holocaust. I mean, it could happen at any moment right now. And yet we don't have any leadership on either side. It reminds me of what happened in the days leading up to 9/11. Is that, you know, I never got that involved in the Lewinsky stuff at Judicial Watch, but we took our eye off the ball with what was going on. And while Bill Clinton was having oral sex with Monica Lewinsky, I think he had more than that actually, it was the American people who were getting screwed, in effect. So the same things happened now, is that we took our eye off the ball. The Israelis took their eye off the ball with their judicial reform, which frankly I think was good reform. I wish we had reform like that. We need somehow to overrule these judges who are totally out of control. But you know, this is the quandary we find ourselves in. So when we come back, let's talk about what's going on with January 6th, Trump in New York. It's outrageous. Sidney Powell, one of Trump's lawyers, has now pled out to a misdemeanor. You can imagine, you know, what she's going to do a number on Trump as it currently goes. And the judge up there in New York, this clown, has just threatened to throw Trump and his lawyers in prison because they forgot to take an email off the website, which criticized the clerk of the court. God forbid you criticize the clerk of a court. So we'll be right back with more from Special Prosecutor with Larry Clayman and Judah Friedman. Until then, go to freedomwatchusa.org and check out The World According to Ben Stein. Stay tuned. We're back with Judah Friedman, and we want to talk about now what's going on with J6. Freedom Watch, as is always the case, we're on the cutting edge. We just don't get documents, okay? Take the documents, put them where the sun don't shine, hang them on the wall, use them as a placemat, you know, some of these public interest groups, such as the one I founded. That's what they do mostly, is documents. Okay, great, we got documents. Let's have fun with documents. Let's go on Fox News and talk about documents, but let's do something with the documents. So we have brought a class action lawsuit in the Northern District of Florida because of the mass surveillance that's going on and did go on against January 6th defendants. And if we're successful, and we have valid grounds, the government's had to admit that they were violating Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. That's where I got injunctions, preliminary injunctions, back in 2013 and 2014. Of course, the intelligence agencies don't adhere to it. They do what they want. They don't care. They don't care about the law. But this is a serious matter. And to put it in context, is that our FBI has been devoting the majority of its resources, along with this corrupt Gestapo of a Biden Justice Department under Merrick Garland, this frightened little squirrel, to persecute January 6th protesters, while we now have a real problem because we have all these terrorists that could come across the southern border. We don't know where they are, and they're poised for terrorist attacks. While at the same time, our so-called FBI is illegally surveilling the January 6 people, probably everybody that's associated with January 6, including the lawyers such as myself, who, you know, everybody's surveilled in this country at this point. You know, you see it even on your cell phone with Google and everything else. They know where you are at every time. They know what you're talking about. You'll wind up getting advertisements once you mention something. We have no privacy anymore. Yet this is what our law enforcement establishment at the FBI has been spending its time doing, as we're now in the deep, you know what, with likely terrorist attacks on the horizon. And let's then move into the threats to synagogues and churches and everything else that this country now faces. Go ahead, Judah.
I think you're raising an interesting question with the Sidney Powell thing, and this is where you're a lawyer. She was supposedly his lawyer, right?
One of them, yeah.
One of them. But so aren't you not allowed to testify against your own client?
No. It's something called the crime fraud exception. And so she probably has given them enough with these hostile judges. Can you imagine Tanya Chutkan, of all people? Okay. I mean, she has no respect for attorney-client privilege. But if you can make a prima facie showing that you were collaborating with your client in the commission of a crime, the client loses the attorney-client privilege. So you can be guaranteed that she just cut a deal to hang Trump.
No, you could almost guarantee, but I'm still curious. What is the crime? They
I don't know
never
what
actually.
the crime is. It doesn't matter what the crime is.
Right. No, but it's important for people to understand that. I think it's constantly important for people to remember that there have been no crimes committed.
That's right.
And you keep on having these. We keep on having these talking points, and Republicans are scared to bring it up. And we brought this up on the World According to Ben Stein. I think when you were on it, we had to keep on saying to people, what exactly was the crime? Where are the crimes? We see Joe Biden's crimes. We see the crimes that people are committing on campuses all across America. What were Trump's crimes? Calling somebody up on the phone saying, can we get a few more votes? Keeping some documents that stupidly or unstupidly from the White House? What were his crimes? I mean,
there are no crimes. We live in a country which is a little different than the former Soviet Union, now Russia, a little different than Iran, a little different than North Korea. They don't care what the crimes are. They make them up. You're in front of a judge who's ultra leftist. Okay, she hates white males. Okay, she even goes after another judge in the courthouse, Trevor McFadden, the Trump appointee, because he asked the Justice Department why they weren't prosecuting Black Lives Matter, but they were prosecuting the J6 peaceful defendants. And you've got a DC jury, which is a hanging jury. Doesn't matter what the crime is. You know, you always joke with me about Woody Allen because I use a lot of his stuff. You know, and
who's the best?
Yeah, in that little clip that I always play from Bananas, where the courtroom scene, he's accused of, I think at the end of using the word thighs in mixed company, you know, and or having love with a horse, making love with I mean, it's as absurd as that, basically. Trump didn't do anything, and neither did Sidney Powell for that matter. But I have a suspicion that to save her own skin, she'll give them what they want, whatever that may be.
Right. Her issue, I think, runs deeper, but obviously it all tie in, which is the Michael Lindell issue, which is the a few other of them, which is the really slamming Dominion, which is something I never heard Trump actually do. I mean, to your recollection, do you ever hear him talking about Dominion voting machines? Because that seems to be the lawsuits, the threat of the lawsuits against Fox everywhere is Dominion. And I don't remember Trump ever bringing that up, but I could be mistaken.
No, you know, and there's a lot of stuff there that nobody can get into either because there are hostile judges to that effect. I have a question. Why did it take Dominion so long to sue these people for billions of dollars?
It's a great question.
What happened in that interim period? Okay, with regard to evidence and everything else. I'm not accusing them of anything. I don't know. But it was curious to me that they didn't immediately sue Lindell and some of the others like One American News and Newsmax immediately, but they waited months and months to do it. That's a question, but you'll never find out because these judges won't allow you to find out because our court system in the federal level in particular is corrupt top to bottom. It's corrupt.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is a question I've been talking with Ben about, and I've been talking to common friends about. Have you, as a you're a Jew, but you're a Messianic Jew, right? Have you in your lifetime in this country, as bad as we've thought that it could be, Larry, in your lifetime, as we're witnessing what's going on across the campuses and colleges and across our country with our judicial system, did you ever, in your wildest imagination, think it would get this bad this quick? We all thought it would get bad, but we all thought maybe not in our lifetime.
You know what's amazing is that these colleges have turned Jewish students into becoming anti-Semites. I mean, it's almost like, let me use Woody Allen as another example. Zelig, you remember that? They asked him, why did he turn into a chameleon? He said, because my next door neighbors were anti-Semites. And the worst part is that my parents sided with the anti-Semites. You know, so, I mean, the guy's brilliant, Woody Allen. He's ahead of his time. But the point being that it is so toxic. It is such, these universities, if you ever consider sending your kid to any of these universities, don't do it. And particularly Harvard and Yale and University of Pennsylvania is the worst. They threw some kid out years ago because he called a black student a water buffalo. I mean, how is that racist? Okay, a water buffalo. So, I don't get it. But this is what's going on. And you had 300 protesters in the Capitol Rotunda the other day, leftist Jewish kids that got themselves arrested, and and they're taking the position of Hamas.
But I'm talking about the thousands, Larry. I'm not just forget about you have 55% of the Democrat Party that sides with the Palestinians right now. In your wildest dreams, did you ever see that happening this quickly?
No, and they're not even siding with the Palestinians. They're siding with Hamas.
With Hamas,
There are good Palestinians, definitely.
Very few, by the way. Just so you know, very few. We keep saying that.
Not the ones that live over there. Okay.
70, just 77%. Let me give this statistic because it's important. 56% of Palestinians support Hamas. 77% of them, I believe, is the number, support Islamic Jihad. Okay.
Well, I'm not. Still, there's a minority that don't. Okay, That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and because it's been a brainwashing these years, and they've turned a very sophisticated. This is a subject which is historical and true, is that the Palestinians, along with the Jews, were the intelligentsia in Palestine. Jews are Palestinians too. We came from Palestine, but over the years, with the indoctrination, with what's been going on, they were turned into radical jihadists, many of them, a large portion of them. And why is it that the Arab countries don't want to take them in, never wanted to take them in? They still don't want to take them in. Egypt won't do squat for them. Syria, Jordan is what, 70-80% Palestinian, and they won't take them in because they fear the Palestinians. They don't want them there. And this is the dilemma that we have. But that does not excuse what's been going on. And it does not mean that Israel doesn't need to now take care of business in Gaza and elsewhere. And they need to take care of it, frankly, in southern Lebanon too. And they need to take care of it in Iran. Now is the time to take care of all of it before it's too late.
No, I think you're 100% correct. I think I was just curious. I mean, just because I think these are questions a lot of people are thinking of themselves right now, and nobody's actually really asking them out loud.
I'm not talking about Rashida Tlaib. She is evil.
No, I'm not referring to her.
Excuse the French. She's an evil POS. Okay.
No, I'm not just referring to her. I just didn't realize how bad the anti-Semitism in our country actually was. I didn't realize how bad the anti-Americanism actually really was. And I this attack really pulled the veil off of how dangerous of a society we're living in, Larry. I can't believe I'm witnessing this in 2020.
Well, and look, it's not just the Palestinians that that have been radicalized. Look at the Anti-Defamation League. These people supported these radicals. Okay, these are leftist Jews who have sold their own people out, which is unbelievable. Like Judas, frankly. So it's a terrible, terrible thing. And yes, if you've got Jewish children or yourself, you better take precautions. You better have good security in these days because you are at real risk.
No, 100%. I was just thinking about that today. I was thinking about the Bill Ackmans of the world and all these billionaires that have pulled out their funding out of Harvard and out of UPenn and out of Columbia, put that money into security on campuses so people could walk around safe. Because there needs to be private security forces obviously in every synagogue in America, but also right now in most college campuses in America. If you're a Jew, you can't walk around in peace.
Yeah, and if you've got kids, you better think twice about sending your kid to these universities. And I don't know, there aren't really many that you can send them to where they don't wind up getting brainwashed.
That's exactly right. My friend brought that up to me on the phone. He's like, "Can you name me a university? Can you name me one university, Larry, that's been pro-Israel?"
Well, maybe Liberty University, maybe Regent University, maybe Hillsborough, those kinds of universities. Maybe Pepperdine, in Los Angeles, which tends to be, Mormon, I guess. Mormons are descendants of the Jews. Did you know that? I became an expert on Mormonism. I represented Clayman.
I didn't know that. I thought Pepperdine was Christian, but I could be totally.
No, it's Mormon, and it's easier to convert to Mormonism if you're a Jew, believe it or not. It's funny.
Well, they convert everybody once you die. So there you are.
Yeah, well, whatever. Everybody has their view, but it's an interesting phenomenon. And there are very few universities that, if you have kids, you would want to send your kids to these days. God forbid. Anyway, about 1 minute left. Let's shift a little bit to our southern border. Okay, we can pick that up during the verdict section. What's going on there? Biden now wants to build a wall. Maybe he wants to build a pyramid at this point and have himself encased in there with his dog that bites everybody. But we'll be right back. In the meantime, go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause. Where can they find your show, Judah?
World According to Ben Stein, everywhere you could download any show, or go to Rumble and just search Ben Stein and hit subscribe. Larry's on it sometimes. A great, fantastic show. And of course, not as good as Larry Clayman, but nobody is.
Well, you're so kind. Thank you, my good friend. We'll be right back with the verdict of Special Prosecutor with Larry Clayman. We're back, fellow patriots, people of faith, those who believe in the vision and creation of our founding fathers. I hope that you will contact me and contact Judah and give us your ideas on where we should be going. You can reach me at leclayman@gmail.com, Clayman with a K. Where can they reach you, Judah, if they want to find you?
Well, you could reach me on Truth Social. You could reach me at World According to Ben Stein at gmail.com. We answer all the emails. That's World According to Ben Stein at Gmail. But of course, on Truth Social, just message me. I take a lot of messages from people that do message me, private message me on Truth. And I encourage people to do that.
Well, we're talking about where this country is going. That's the verdict. And as I've said over and over again, because advertisement is repetition, is that as I write about in my book, It Takes a Counter-Revolution, Wake Up America, the American people need to wake up. We just can't sit there and watch what's going on right now. How many wars have we fought? I'll get your thoughts on this, Judah. In my lifetime, and I'm older than you, obviously, where we've sacrificed so many American brave servicemen because politicians, had an angle or something that they wanted to prove or whatever. Starting with the Korean War, which we lost essentially. Then we go to Vietnam, which we lost that one. We really lost Operation Desert Shield or whatever it was called with Kuwait because we never took care of Saddam Hussein at that time. And he came back. Of course, one can argue that he should still be there, probably be a good buffer to Iran. And of course, we lost in Iraq and we lost in Afghanistan. We haven't won a friggin' war since World War II. Yet we're now on the verge of a much bigger war than anything we've seen since World War II. And the stakes are much greater with nuclear weapons, with our adversaries. I do believe that Iran already has, a couple atomic weapons. And frankly, I hope Israel, this may sound radical, has neutron bombs, because we actually do have nuclear weapons that give off very little radiation. I mean, you blow a bomb out, over there, Israel can't even use a conventional nuclear weapon. They'll kill themselves and they'll kill everybody else around them. But I hope that they've got these bunker busting bombs and just take care of it right now and get rid of the supreme leader and the rest of them.
It's yeah, I don't know what they have, as Ben calls it, a doomsday device. I pray they don't have to use it. But there was that song, remember, from your generation, Barry Maguire, On the Eve of Destruction. I do believe, Larry, we are on the eve of destruction. And people should check out that song. It's the irony of that song is that Richard Nixon actually used that in his campaign, I believe in '72, to win. And because we are on the eve of destruction.
Well, we are, it's I remember when I was a kid in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay, my mother said to me, maybe she wasn't thinking when she said it. She says, "We're all going to die." I actually believe that. I had nightmares for years. In school, they would tell us, if there's air raid sirens and missiles are picked up, get under your desk. Like, that's going to do a lot of good, And the litmus test, and what I get back to about Wake Up America, is I don't think Americans realize the risk that they now face. I don't think they do. And yet we have this idiot, moron, criminal as president, as Secretary of State, who looks like he's scared of his shadow, a vice president who's an even bigger moron than the president, and Republicans who run around Capitol Hill like the Keystone Cops. So I think we better wake up quickly and take charge ourselves, because if not, it's now not just high gas prices, it's not just high food prices, it's not just high crime. We're on the verge of potential nuclear holocaust.
And by the way, just for the record, Larry Clayman, I love you. And for everybody out there listening, we're not the neocons. We're people that are looking at the world objectively. And it's really important that you separate the two. I understand that we've made mistakes. Let's not make the mistake of ignoring our own demise.
Yeah, let's go back to Dr. Strangelove. Everybody should watch that, because that's where we are right now. And sometimes you have to bite the bullet. We don't advocate war. Like I just said, we've lost every war since World War II. It's about time that we won one, and we need to eliminate Iran right now. And the Saudis would help us, and so would the Israelis. So rather than sailing around, the Red Sea in a boat, it's time we do something. In any event, thank you, Judah. God bless you. God bless everybody. Remember that God will only help us if we help ourselves. We'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Clayman. Until then, thank you for listening to it.